Imagine a man so feared, so powerful, that he had to deceive the world with faces that were not his. A dictator who trusted no one, not even himself, obsessed with such profound paranoia that he changed beds every night. Today, I take you into the dark recesses of Saddam Hussein's mind to reveal the most incredible secrets of his existence, from his doubles trained to deceive CIA snipers until his humiliating fall into a hole dug in the earth. Prepare yourselves because the story you are about to hear is a journey into the most extreme desperation and lust for power. For more than 30 years, the name of Saddam Hussein resounded like thunder in the skies of the Middle East. Absolute dictator of Iraq, his figure dominated the international political scene, a mix of icy charisma and unheard of cruelty. His reign was not just an exercise in power, but an obsessive and ruthless pursuit of personal security, driven by a deep seated paranoia as deep as the desert sands. Every decision, every look, every breath seemed to be dictated by the constant threat of a plot, a betrayal, an unexpected bullet. He was not just a leader, he was a shadow dancing among his people, never fully visible, never fully reachable. His world was a gilded prison, woven of suspicions and intrigues, where a man's life was worth less than a grain of sand. Asa Tokigo one day zais yi, and its very survival depended on a game of mirrors and deception. But how do you protect a man when the whole world wants him dead? When the most powerful intelligence agencies on the planet, like the CIA, have your movements under a magnifying glass, ready to strike at the slightest mistake? Saddam's response was as brilliant as it was macabre. Never appear alone on the stage of life. Thus was born the lookalikes strategy, one of the most incredible and dark pages in its history. These were not mere extras, they were living clones, molded and trained with maniacal precision to be his perfect duplicate. Their mission was only one: to attract enemy fire, to divert attention, to confuse the hunters. The selection process was brutal and meticulous. Ordinary men, sometimes from low social backgrounds, were scouted in Iraqi cities and villages, their only virtue being a physical resemblance, even the slightest, to the leader. Imagine leading a normal life, and then one day you find yourself faced with emissaries of the regime who tell you, "You are the chosen one. You will be Saddam." The next step was transformation. It wasn't just about clothes or wigs. These men underwent extensive plastic surgery. Their noses were reshaped, their jaws redefined, sometimes even their brow ridges altered, all to replicate every curve, every line of the dictator's face. Every scar, every mole, every blemish on Saddam's skin had to be faithfully reproduced, almost as if they were biological clones. But the physical resemblance was only the beginning. The true art of deception lay in intensive training. These doubles were forced to study Saddam's every expression, every gesture. They spent hours watching video recordings, imitating his regal posture, the way he shook hands, his slow, measured pace. But the most incredible detail was the voice imitation. Under the guidance of speech therapists and instructors, they learned to replicate Saddam's low guttural tone, his dialectal inflection, and the dramatic pauses he used in his speeches. They had to be able to recite entire speeches from memory without the slightest hesitation, without betraying their true identity. They were to become Saddam not only in appearance, but in soul, or so it seemed. Their life was a sentence. They were prisoners of their own likeness. They could not have a private life, they could not have friends or family outside the regime's inner circle which knew of their role. Their identities had been erased, replaced by that of their master. When they went out in public, cameras followed them, crowds cheered them or feared them, but they knew that every appearance was a mortal risk. They participated in military parades, official ceremonies, inaugurated schools or factories. They shook hands, kissed children, gave speeches, while the real Saddam watched from afar, safe and sound, gambling with someone else's life. This elaborate ballet of deception had a devastating impact on his enemies. It created unprecedented information chaos, sowing doubt about the real Saddam at every turn. It was a sleight of hand on a global scale, and the magician was a paranoid dictator. This strategy, incredible as it may be, was just the tip of the iceberg of his paranoia. Saddam Hussein was not living a normal life. He was a man haunted by fear, suspicion, and the threat of betrayal by anyone, even his most loyal associates. His existence was a constant escape, an interminable game of chess against an invisible but omnipresent enemy. His biggest obsession, never sleeping in the same building 2 nights in a row. Imagine the logistics: dozens of luxurious residences scattered throughout Iraq ready to host him for just one night. Every palace a fortress, but none secure enough to hold the leader for more than 24 hours. He was a nomad in his own kingdom, an endless wandering between opulent villas and secret bunkers. This was not a luxury choice, but a survival strategy. Making his movements unpredictable was the only way, he said, to prevent his enemies from planning an attack with surgical precision. Every morning upon awakening, his men had to organize the transfer to a new residence, a new refuge. The streets were sealed off, the routes carefully planned, the guards deployed like ghosts in the shadows. No one, except a very close circle, knew his next destination. This life wasn't a game, It was a relentless battle against death, an intricate dance of shadows and secrets, a constant attempt to escape a fate he felt looming over him. His life was a macabre work of art, whose theme was the denial of death. Paranoia consumed him. He didn't trust telephones, fearing wiretaps, nor cables, suspecting they were bugged. His communications were entrusted to trusted messengers who carried handwritten, sealed, and often encrypted messages. Food was also an obsession. Each meal was prepared in several different places, and tasters had to try it before him to avoid poisoning. His security circle was so complex that it itself became a labyrinth of double dealing and uncertain loyalties. It is said that he tested the loyalty of his subordinates with psychological traps, that he spied on his own children, and that trust was a currency he almost never spent. Living like this meant being a lonely king on a throne of thorns, surrounded by ghosts and suspicions. The price of such absolute power was an equally absolute solitude, a mental prison far more impregnable than any bunker. Yet all these stratagems, all this meticulous construction of an illusion were of no use. The story is often mocking and cruel, and in December 2003, its irony reached its peak. Saddam Hussein, the man who had deceived the world with his lookalikes, who never slept in the same bed for 2 nights, who had built an empire on fear, was found. Operation Red Dawn, conducted by American Special Forces, put an end to this elaborate sleight of hand. And where was the great dictator, the man of 1,000 faces, discovered? Not in a $1 million underground bunker, not in one of his dozens of luxurious villas, nor protected by an army of lookalikes. He was found in a place that defied all imagination, a hiding place that mocked all his past greatness. A tiny hole dug in the ground, covered with some earth and a carpet, not far from Tikrit, his hometown. It was a spider hole, a primitive burrow like those dug by animals, a desperate refuge for a desperate man. When American soldiers pulled him out of that dark pit, the image was brutal, humiliating. There was no trace of the imposing, well groomed dictator the world knew. He had a long, unkempt beard, dirty clothes, tired eyes, and his expression was that of a defeated man, a shadow of his former self. He was completely disarmed, without any defense left, reduced to the rawest essence of human vulnerability. The capture of Saddam Hussein was a turn of events no one could have foreseen, an ending so bitter that it made every past effort pathetic. The man who had built his entire existence on the image of invincibility, of unrivaled cunning, was unmasked in his utter fragility. His paranoia, which had driven him to create an empire of deception and live an outcast life in his own palace, was the same one that led him to such an ignoble end. It wasn't CIA snipers who found him in a precision ambush, nor an elaborate betrayal that exposed his location. It was the animal instinct for survival that led him into that hole in the ground, and there was his end. The contrast between the fictitious grandeur of his kingdom and the miserable reality of his capture is a powerful warning. It shows how the obsessive search for control and security can lead to the bitterest of defeats. All his elaborateness, all his doubles, his palaces, his plots dissolved in an instant, revealing the man behind the mask. A lonely, terrified man whose life had been a futile escape from reality. The story of Saddam Hussein is a tragic demonstration that, no matter how much a man may try to escape his destiny, reality always finds its way in the end, overcoming every stratagem, every lie, every game of shadows. If you are fascinated by this foray into the secrets of power, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next historical insights.